Hey, what's up everybody? If you watched the last video, you saw that we got the engine in the S10. Today we're going to start putting some accessories on it. I'll show you right now. I already put a few things on. The exhaust manifolds, the hot side piping, and I threw the turbo on. I also made the return line. The feed line runs there, but I need a fitting. I don't want to go straight in. I want to go on a 90, so I need a 90-degree fitting for there. We're going to get doing the coils, cleaning those up, painting them, getting them on. Alternator and the power steering bracket and power steering pump and everything. We got to clean all that stuff up, paint it, and get that on. So yeah, let's get to it. There's one coil pack. Pretty dirty. And here's the other one. I already took it apart. I just wiped it down good and then painted this. The coils, I've also wiped them down. I'm actually going to mask the plastic part off, and I'm going to paint this where it's all rusty, just so it looks nicer. And I cleaned the wiring harness up on this one a little bit. So I'm going to get this one painted in together, and then I'll take that one apart and do the same thing with that one. Masked them quickly and gave them a coat to get all the rusty looking rust off them. And now they look nice. So I got this one side on here. That's all ran. For this rear one here, it's really close to the exhaust. I couldn't run the stock straight boot, so I actually put a 90-degree boot on there, and I test fit the exhaust on there, and it actually fits really good. So when the exhaust is on, I mean, these are probably this far away, which I think will be good. Plus I'm going to wrap the exhaust with the titanium stuff too, so I think that'll keep the heat down enough. It should be good. And that one's way far away. Plus this is where my temperature gauge is going to go, where we modified that hole for the fitting, and then it'll just wrap around and go back there. So it should be good now. So now I'm just going to do the exact same thing on the other side and get the other side coils on, and then move on to doing something else. I'm going to cut this little tab off. I did it on this one. Just cleans it up. There's not really a purpose. That's to hold the wiring, which I'm not going to have the wiring run that way. I think that's what it's for, but I cut it off because it sticks up and looks weird. So yeah, just cut that off with a cut-off wheel and clean it up and give her a little quick paint job. So it's the next day. Last night was, we were hanging out. I don't know if you guys have seen, a lot of times we do live streams on Wednesday. We hang out every Wednesday, so we usually do a live stream. So if you haven't seen it, you should definitely check it out. It's usually lots of fun. But anyways, I got the other coil pack on. Obviously just pretty much the same as the other side. Even though I put that smaller booster on, it's still a little tight here. It's right up against there. I think it should be fine. I could drop the coil brackets a little bit, but I think it's pretty good. I also think this braided line here for the brake line is going to work pretty good. Obviously right now it's touching, but I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen. I'm still got to get a fitting to attach it down there, and then I'll reroute it. Maybe I'll have it come over here so it's away from there. I also just kind of threw the turbo blanket on. See how that looks. So that looks pretty cool. And I threw in the O2 sensors, the narrow bands. I might end up having to buy new ones. Those ones are just from the junkyard, so I don't know even if they're good. Plus I don't like that the heat wrap is all ripped up, but you won't really be able to see them. And then I also took the power steering bracket off. And I wanted to take the pump off, but I couldn't get the pulley off. I have a puller, but I guess it's kind of seized on there. And I was like, whatever, I don't want to mess anything up. So I just cleaned the power steering pump really good, painted it. Now I'm going to mask it off. And I'm going to paint the aluminum part. This bracket I'll paint. Just going to throw the oil filter on. I actually picked these up in the States, Purelator, and they're actually red. I think they're pretty close to match the engine, which is funny. Just going to put some oil in it. It's always a good idea when you're putting a new filter on to fill it up with oil before you put it on. Also put a little bit of oil on the ring, rubber ring, so that it doesn't stick on there. So I'm going to do that now, and then I'm going to mask off that power steering and paint that bracket. So I just happened to be looking around in my toolbox for brake line fittings, because I thought maybe I would cut the fitting off that braided brake line and then reflare it. And I found the fitting that I was looking for, believe it or not. It was actually in my toolbox. I actually had one. And I've been looking around different places online, and I can't find one anywhere, the one I need. Even Summit doesn't have them in stock. And turns out I had one in my toolbox the whole time. Here it is. And you can't really see the fitting. It's down in here. It's just an adapter fitting. But now you can see this brake line's mounted, and then the steering shaft sits kind of right there. So it shouldn't be in the way of the brake line at all. And then I still have to do this brake line, but that one's going to the adjustable portioning valve, which I don't have yet. So that shouldn't be a problem because I can mount that pretty much anywhere. Yeah, so that's good. Now I'm going to get back to masking off this power steering pump so I can paint that bracket. So I got her all painted up. Just letting it dry and then get her on the truck. Also painted the pulley and stuff. Bracket for the power steering. Yeah, so just going to let this dry and unmask it and then put it on the truck. Okay, so now I've got the water pump and I have to take these fittings out. The fittings for the heater hoses, because I'm going to have to put some 90-degree fittings, or I'm going to have to weld this up and drill fittings on the bottom because it gets too close to the hot side piping. So I already took the one out. So I figured out that the easiest way to do this is just to put it in the vise. And then just give her a couple yanks back and forth. And that's it. Just like that. It's out. So now I have to decide if I should just tap these. I'm thinking about just tapping them and then put some fittings in that point it down. Some like maybe or put some straight ANs and then put some 90s with push lock hose, and then put push lock hose down to the heater core. At the heater core I should be able to just slide them over and clamp them. So I'm going to see, I don't think I have a tap this big. I'll have to wait for Clayton for that. But I'm going to clean it up and get it ready to paint it anyways, otherwise, and then figure out what to do with this. I might just plug these holes off for now, like tap them and put plugs in them, because I don't have a heater anyways at the moment. So until I get one, and then I'll just get fittings and stuff. I got it all on there. There it is. The pulley's on. I put the lower power steering, or the pressure power steering hose on. And then for the return line here, I actually put a piece of braided -6. I mean, it doesn't touch here anyways. There is clearance, so I think it'll be fine anyways. I mean, the braided looks cool. Plus, it won't melt like a rubber hose would. And then I gave the alternator a quick paint job and the bolts. Now I'm going to get the alternator on, and we'll see how that looks. Here's the alternator on. I think it looks pretty nice. Kind of an overview of the engine. So my next thing to do is something with this dipstick tube. I really don't like that it sticks out like this. I mean, I've already kind of bent it, trying to put it a different way, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it here somewhere, and then cut this nub off, and then just weld it to there, and then I have to shorten the dipstick tube anyways, or the dipstick itself, because of the shortened oil pan. This is what I did on my car. I just shortened it like that, and it looks way better. Obviously, in a big truck, you need a long one to be able to get at it, but I don't need it in this one, so I am going to do that. So that's the next thing I'm going to do. Alright, so here's the dipstick. As you can see, I cut a bunch out of it. I cut this much out, and the bracket. And now I have it fit together. I get the screwdriver just holding the piece. And I'm going to TIG weld this back together. The reason I have to TIG weld the end on is because this end's a little fatter. If you look, it's a little bit fatter than the bottom. And that's where the top of the dipstick fits in tight. I did the exact same thing on my car, so it worked out really good. So I'm going to do that, and yeah, we'll see what it looks like when I weld it up. You can see where I welded it. And then what I did is I took that little piece of the big bracket. I cut it down, fit it, and then I just tack welded it on. I don't know if you can see it right there. I just tacked it in one spot. And now I'll pull it out, and then I'll fully weld it on, and then it'll pretty much be just like a stock dipstick. Of course, I got to shorten the dipstick itself, but the tube will be nice and short. It won't be so noticeable. So there it is. It's the bracket welded on. And as you can see, the dipstick part is super long now, so I'll have to cut it down a whole bunch. But I have to do that anyway, so that's cool. And there you go. Now I'll just give her a paint job and get her installed. So I got the dipstick in now, so I'll show it to you. I actually just threw the exhaust back on. So there you can see it tucked in close to the coils. I don't know if you can see it from down here. There it is with the bracket bolted in to one of the factory holes on the cylinder head. And so what I'm doing now is I put the exhaust on to figure out where to put the O2 sensor for the wideband. They say to go about 18 inches from the turbo, so 18 inches is somewhere around here. So my plan is to put it, this is just an old O2 sensor, I'm gonna have it like that, and the wires are gonna go off that way. I ordered an O2 sensor, it just hasn't come in yet. I'll be picking it up next week, but I figured I'd get the bung on there, welded on, and so I'm gonna drill that out and weld it in now. All right, so I got the that bung welded on, and then I actually I painted this exhaust pipe with some of that ceramic high temp paint. As you can see, I'm gonna wrap it with the titanium wrap like I did the hot side and like to match this, but it hasn't come in yet. So I still wanted to paint this anyways, just so that it wouldn't rust, and the ceramic coating will also help a little bit with the heat. But there it is. That's not the O2 sensor, that's just that other one, just to see how it fits, but it looks pretty good. I still have to build the rest of the exhaust from that point down, like kind of down by the bell housing down to the back. So I'm still gonna do that, but I figured I'd get this painted to protect it. And as far as the heat goes, I really want to keep the heat down in the engine compartment. So that's all painted, and I actually got this thing here painted, tensioner. It's all cleaned up and painted. The water pump, I'm going to have to wait. I actually went for a ride to a few stores to try to get some NPT taps so that I could tap those water pump holes, but nobody seemed to have any, so I'll just have to wait for Clayton because he has them. So then we'll tap those, plug them off. I just want to be able to plug them with pipe plugs right now, and then when I get a heater for it, then I can take the plugs out and then put in whatever kind of fittings I need. I also got the starter, painting the starter. It's right there, just cleaning that up a little bit. So all that stuff should look pretty good. I'm getting to the point where I'm almost done putting the engine together. I'm still gonna need to do the intake, but I can't really put the intake on until I do the wiring, because as you can see that I'm gonna run the wires through that hole right there, which is behind the intake. So I kind of have to have the intake. I mean, I'll put it on for figuring out the wiring, but I'm going to have to take it off to run the wires and stuff. So I'm not going to actually bolt the intake on yet. I am going to start cleaning it up and figuring out what I'm going to do with it in terms of if I'm going to shave it at all or what I'm going to do there. So yeah, I'm not sure what else we're going to do. All right, so I got the starter painted. I actually threw it in. Should be able to see it down there. I was kind of worried that I wouldn't be able to get at the crank sensor and I'd have to leave the starter out, but it looks like it fits pretty good. I threw the intake on just to kind of see how it looks. Obviously it looks gross because it's filthy and dirty. Yeah, so that's going to be it for this video. So like always, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll check you later.